triplets. The law said that no newborn child could survive unless the parents of the child could find someone who would volunteer to die. Triplets, if they were all to live, called for 3 volunteers. "Do the parents have 3 volunteers?" said Leora Duncan. "Last I heard," said Dr. Hitz, "they had 1, and were trying to scrape another 2 up." "I don't think they made it," she said. "Nobody made 3 appointments with us. Nothing but singles going through today, unless somebody called in after I left. What's the name?" "Welling," said the waiting father, sitting up red-eyed and frowsy. "Edward K. Welling, Jr. is the name of the happy father-to-be." He raised his right hand, looked at the spot on the wall, gave a hoarsely wretched chuckle. "Present," he said. "Oh, Mr. Whaling," said Dr. Hitz. I didn't see you." "The invisible man," said Whaling. "They just phoned me that your triplets had been born," said Dr. Hitz. "They're all fine, and so is the mother. I'm on my way to see them now." "Hooray," said Whaling emptily. "You don't sound very happy," said Dr. Hitz. "What man in my shoes wouldn't be happy?" said Whaling. He gestured with his hands to symbolize carefree simplicity. "All I have to do is pick out which one of the triplets is going to live, then deliver my maternal grandfather to the happy hooligan, and come back here with a receipt." Dr. Hitz became rather severe with Whaling, towered over him. "You don't believe in population control, Mr. Whaling," he said. "I think it's perfectly keen," said Whaling tautly. "Would you like to go back to the good old days, when the population of the earth was 20 billion, about to become 40 billion, then 80 billion, then 160 billion? Do you know what a druplet is, Mr. Whaling?" said Hitz. "Nope," said Whaling sulkily. "A druplet, Mr. Whaling, is one of the little knobs, one of the little pulpy grains of a blackberry. Without population control, human beings would now be packed on the surface of this old planet like druplets on a blackberry. Think of it." Whaling continued to stare at the same spot on the wall. "In the year 2000, said Dr. Hitz, before scientists stepped in and laid down the law, there wasn't even enough drinking water to go around, and nothing to eat but seaweed. And still people insisted on their right to reproduce like jackrabbits, and their right, if possible, to live forever." "I want those kids," said Whaling quietly. "I want all 3 of them." "Of course you do," said Dr. Hitz. "That's only human." "I don't want my grandfather to die either," said Whaling. "Nobody's really happy about taking a close relative to the cat box," said Dr. Hitz gently, sympathetically. "I wish people wouldn't call it that," said Leora Duncan. "What?" said Dr. Hitz. "I wish people wouldn't call it the cat box and things like that. It gives people the wrong impression." "You're absolutely right," said Dr. Hitz. "Forgive me." He corrected himself, gave the municipal gas chambers their official title, a title no one ever used in conversation. "I should have said the Ethical Suicide Studios." "That sounds so much better," said Leora Duncan. "This child of yours, whichever one you decide to keep, Mr. Whaling," said Dr. Hitz, "he or she is going to live on a happy, roomy, clean, rich planet thanks to population control. In a garden like that mural there." He shook his head. 2 centuries ago, when I was a young man, it was a hell that nobody thought could last another 20 years. Now centuries of peace and plenty stretch before us as far as the imagination cares to travel." He smiled luminously. The smile faded as he saw that Whaling had just drawn a revolver. Whaling shot Dr. Hitz dead. "There's room for one, a great big one," he said. And then he shot Leora Duncan. "It's only death," he said to her as she fell. "There, room for 2. And then he shot himself, making room for all 3 of his children. Nobody came running. Nobody, seemingly, heard the shots. The painter sat on top of his stepladder, looking down reflectively on the sorry scene. The painter pondered the mournful puzzle of life, demanding to be born, and once born, demanding to be fruitful, to multiply and to live as long as possible, to do all that on a very small planet that would have to last forever. All the answers that the painter could think of were grim. Even grimmer, surely, than a cat box, a happy hooligan, an easy go. He thought of war. He thought of plague. He thought of starvation. He knew that he would never paint again. He let his paintbrush fall to the drop cloths below. And then he decided he had had about enough of life in the happy garden of life, too. And he came slowly down the ladder. He took Welling's pistol, really intending to shoot himself. But he didn't have the nerve. And then he saw the telephone booth in the corner of the room. He went to it, dialed the well-remembered number 2br02b.
Federal Bureau of Termination,
said a very warm voice of a hostess. How soon can I get an appointment? He asked, speaking very carefully.
We could probably fit you in late this afternoon, sir,
she said.
It might even be earlier if we get a cancellation.
All right, said the painter. Fit me in, if you please. And he gave her his name, spelling it out.
Thank you, sir,
said the hostess.
Your city thanks you, your country thanks you, your planet thanks you. But the deepest thanks of all is from future generations.
The end of To Be Are Not To Be by Kurt Vonnegut. Recording by Anthony Wood. Madison, Wisconsin. www.smoking-monkey.com